Good evening, good morning, and good night. Welcome to Inappropriate Radio. It's your host, Tashana. Let's get into this. So, hi guys. I hope all is well. No alien talk, no periodic table talk right now. We have a message from the Creator. All right. Just because you see someone doing bad or doing things that we would consider to be evil doesn't mean that they're not one of God's people. Okay? As we know, like we've been talking for a while now about shape-shifting and having curses put on you, or having to be the one to break the generational cycle or pattern, or just simply having to learn a lesson, right? The Creator wants you to walk through something because He's preparing your soul and your spirit for what's ahead on the journey. So a lot of people look and say, oh yeah, that's karma, or if people don't mess with this person, then obviously it's them. Or if you did X, Y, and Z, then you got to be a bad person. First of all, we know it's a reason for everything, right? In the same way we talk about people who were created to do bad things, who attack us, some of those people that do bad things are avenging angels. Some people that we feel are bad, and we've talked about, how we can watch people do things, that is messed up, and you see them get away with certain things. I'm not saying that what they're doing is right, but it doesn't mean that that's not one of God's people. We look at things, and we look at the things that people do, and we realize that we're all human, right? We put people on these pedestals. We, give them grace where we wouldn't give many other people that same extension of grace. We have this level of capacity where we could, have some sort of humility towards people who get placed in certain positions. And the issue with that is that although they've been blessed to be in that position, it doesn't mean that they've mastered the art of making the distinction between flesh and spirit. Sometimes these curses and cycles run over and they don't get broken, and God just says, okay, I'm going to use this particular person to break the cycle and have certain things done through them to start what I wanted to start 5 years ago, right? It's not about having money. It's not about it's not even really about anything tangible. Everything that is required for you to excel and expand as a person is connected to what you know, to your decisions, right? It doesn't really have much to do with what you acquire. That is just one of the symptoms, that's one of the results of expanding, of elevating, of ascending. But in reality, it's ultimately about the vibration. It's ultimately about the exposure to new things, to new information, learning where you come from, learning the root of who you are on multiple layers. We've talked about being connected to 4 families, right? Because our parents have 2 parents on both sides. So ultimately, the gist of this conversation is to pretty much focus on who we are. Where do we come from? And that is layered, right? Because you could just say I was born in California, right? And then you could take it a step further and say my parents migrated from Jamaica to California. And then you could take it a step further and say my ancestors hail from, this particular, I don't know, let's just say they come from the star, the Sirius star. It's a layered. Now, if you believe that there is a creator of all things, then you understand where I'm going with this. Everything's going to lead back to the creator. But the different levels that you go through when you start seeking yourself, as you learn more, you have to go further into exactly what is associated with you, because it comes from somewhere. Meaning, again, your parents aren't just your parents. Your parents have parents, their parents have parents, and so on and so forth. We've discussed how, it wasn't a segment, but we've talked about how after at least the 7th generation, there's a breakdown and you start to lose the genetic code and, genetic fabric of that of your ancestors. So that right there, again, is one of the keys that says, okay, this is one of those times where if you just so happen to fall in that 7th generation, then more than likely you'll be a firstborn, a generational curse breaker. You'll be the last born. You'll be dead smack in the middle, right? Depending on what is associated with the bloodline, and also what lessons need to be learned for that bloodline. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, again, that people who are out here raising hell, just all out evil, are doing certain stuff. No. I'll use someone like DMX. I'll use a DMX, for example. Right? We can clearly see the battle. There's nothing hidden here. It's obvious. It's straight to the point. It's not... Sorry, I got distracted a little bit. But yeah, if you are looking at a person and you're like, they're doing this and they're doing that, but you can clearly see the battle that they're experiencing, and you're looking at them and you're examining what you may consider to be good and bad, and then you're comparing them to that. The creator gives everyone an assignment. And again, those same people that we look at as raising hell for the good people, there are good people that raise hell, because karma is needed, right, on both sides. And sometimes it takes a certain type of good person to be able to battle, certain entities. We see it all the time, right? We see these avenging angels, these movies rather, about, these warriors who fight for good, right? And remember, we had the discussion of your spiritual ranking not always fully being reflected here in this timeline, in this dimension, because honestly, you have to figure that whatever it is the creator has you're doing, no matter how mundane it may be, it's levels, right? So as you ascend here, it allows you to ascend even more up there, right? If that makes sense. But in all reality, the overall concept here is to fulfill all of what the creator wants you to fulfill. And we know that, right? But we just have to be reminded, this is just stop judging people, stop projecting onto people, stop making assumptions, stop allowing your own personal experience to force you to view, people through a certain lens. Like you're boxing people in when you do that, and you don't allow people, again, the grace to be comfortable with who they are. And more than likely, if someone is really protected and covered by God when it comes to certain facets, but they are, down here doing certain things, trust and believe they'll know to get away from you if they feel like you are no good, unless the Creator has the two of you around one another to learn some valuable lessons, okay? It's not likely that these souls are going to be consumed by the darker side, only because if they're warriors here, they're gods in their own right. They're God-like, in their own right, meaning their energy and the space that they take up in the ethers is very grand and bright and strong and dense, and it holds a lot of weight. In the spiritual realm, they're more than likely, intergalactic beings. They more than likely have spiritual gifts. If you notice, when we see these people who are always like fighting, right? They're always like steps ahead. They always have like this really strong sense of awareness in their environment as well as in themselves. So these are not makings, of bad people. Believe it or not, people who practice witchcraft and things like that, they're God's people as well. They just got consumed by darkness, and they have gone down the route of using their gifts for bad and evil and low vibrational things. But those two are God's people. I'm not saying all of us are God's people, because all of us are not. God don't mess with everybody like that. But He loves us all. And once you decide to take on the path of your higher self, because remember, it's a spectrum, right? You can take several routes. Once you reach a certain level in the spirit, once you have graduated and ascended to certain frequencies, you are open up to an array of options, and they vary, right? It's multiple on the higher end and then even on the lower end. So once you make the decision to take the higher route or the high road, it'll be a lot easier for you to be able to see who these people are, right? You can tell if it's just a fad or a phase, if God allows you that type of, idea, if He gives you that type of intel, because this is like high level insight. You have to have a certain type of level of gifts and a certain amount of time practicing these gifts, and you have to come from a stock where gifts as these types are abundant and linger. They linger, right? These types of gifts linger in certain bloodlines. So all in all, once you allow yourself to become consumed with the light, you should be fine. Don't allow yourself to get caught up too much. And yeah, I think that's it. Got to be careful how you treat people, how you look at people, the things you project onto them, because some of them are still doing God's work just because it's something that we feel is, basically, this is like a stay in your lane type of message. Pretty much. All right, but I'm going to end it here. I do love y'all. I hope y'all are enjoying y'all weekends. I hope y'all are drinking y'all water, eating y'all fruit and vegetables, sipping on your own tea. And we're going to be, we'll be getting into this next series in a minute also. All right. But I love y'all. Peace.